Okay, so this is going to count as factoring polynomials completely, because in the other videos we did factoring polynomials completely with 4 terms, okay? But it is also possible to factor completely with a trinomial and a binomial as well. So, as always, the first step is always to pull out that GCF, okay? What do all 3 of these terms have in common? They're all multiples of 3, and they all have the variable x. 3x times what gives me 3x cubed, x squared. 3x times what gives me 6x squared plus 2x. 3x times what gives me a negative 18, negative 6. So at this point you have to say, can this be factored any further? And you're going to look inside the parentheses to see if it can be factored any further. Well, when you do the magic x in this situation, okay, or if you already know that what 2 numbers when multiplied together give you a negative 6, but when you add them together gives you a positive 2, there are not 2 factors that allows you to factor any further. So believe it or not, this is already factored completely. The only step we had to do to factor this completely was just pull out that GCF, and it cannot be factored any further, so we stop right here. Now let's look at our second example, which is a binomial, okay? Again, the first step is to pull out the GCF, okay? And the GCF is they're both multiples of 7, and the lowest exponent is x squared. So 7x squared times what gives me 7x to the 4th, x squared, and 7x squared times what gives me a negative 28x squared, negative 4. Again, at this point, we've just pulled out the GCF, but we have to look inside of the parentheses to see if this can be factored any further, and do you recognize anything? And the answer is yes, it can be factored further because this is the difference of 2 perfect squares. Okay, so we can pull down our GCF and continue where we are. So we need to ask what times what gives us x squared, x and x. What times what gives me a negative 4, positive 2 and negative 2, and now you have factored completely. Once again, if it said factor, we would stop right here. But if it said solve or factor to solve, we would set it equal to 0, and then we would split up the factors and set each of them equal to 0. So 7x squared equals 0, x plus 2 and x minus 2 equals 0, and just solve for x. Divide by 7 on both sides, x squared equals 0, and then take the square root of x on both sides, x equals 0, okay? On this side, we would just subtract 2 from both sides, x equals negative 2. On this, we would add 2 to both sides, x equals 2. Okay? And we're done with factoring completely.